Hello, and welcome to another episode of my Centauri Let's Play. This is Northstar. This is going to be probably a quicker episode. So I did realize, I'm sure the sharp-eyed among you caught my last video, that I did not save after... I did not repeat the Planetary Council vote before I saved last time. I had a bug with a former trying to cancel one of the units and it not preserving form returns. It's not like Civ 4 where you can even abandon work on an improvement and come back to it later. Say if you're running from barbarians and it'll all be saved. And since I was trying to add a new former to this here and then have one that its full movement, go into this forest tile, because if I had the one that only had third movement, it would have probably bounced. Anyways, I'm going to have to repeat the Planetary Council elections. But before I do, let's take a look at design stuff a little bit. Reading some wikis, trying to see if there was any role for... or where was the tech? Optical computers leading to Gatling lasers. I was trying to figure out if there was a use for it. Which eventually, yes, with pre-essential algorithms, it's on a beeline to fusion power, but there actually is a use for this in the game. Even though it's inferior to missiles, but you get synthetic fossil fuels, and you probably have earlier. I was looking, comes from looking at how the unit cost is calculated. I think at some point I had installed an expanded, there was like an expanded data links thing, or maybe I think it came with the Itzy's mod, which that affects the Alien Crossfire EXE only, but the data links, I'm pretty sure they're saved separately for the EXE. So the data links, because is a mod that just says data links, upgrades it. It makes it more comprehensive, and it doesn't actually overwrite the EXE, if I remember. So I'm pretty sure this came from Yetzi's. Some of the stuff I don't think was in the base game. Data link circles, I could be wrong. May have to figure this stuff out in mod order when it comes to trying to make the data links more comprehensive. If there is some stuff with one of the data links only mods that's actually not even here. Nuance is the game that I record. But anyways, if you look at the unit cost formula, it's kind of a mess, but you can do the math and you can get the missile skin ships I built before. They're 4 rows, 6, 1, 4. Can't give them armor without increasing the cost. You can do Gatling lasers, and you can do 5, 3, 4, and I think only because both weapon armor grade and 1 adds 1 to the cost, but it's only 1 row more expensive, so 5, versus a missile skim ship that, if you even give it synth metal, just do the earlier part of the equation, it would be 5, and so it'd be 6. So you get something that's got both armor and weapon and costs a row less. And the main use of this in ships, because generally you want pure attack, pure defense units, and ships, they can get an artillery duels with long range fire. Excuse me, I'm kind of tired. Part of why this video will be shorter. So armor is not super useful on ships, usually, except for 1 or 2 special abilities that are tied to the cost to armor level, most notably Hypnotic Trance. So if you wanted to create Hypnotic Trance skim ships, it would actually cost less I believe, I think this rounds down with 5-3, 5 attack, 3 defense. You would be able to basically have much more affordable. I think it'd be one or two. I think it'd be 2 rows cheaper trans skim ships that only have 1 less attack, or you could. Oh yeah. Build AAA tracking ones, which that'll enhance defense. But if you need ships to defend against enemy Neil jets, you could actually. I said plasma steel, but you actually give it silk steel for the same cost. So Gatling lasers, just based on the cost formula, can be given silk steel. In many cases, only cost 1 row more than the ships that have no armor and missiles. And that can be most useful for basically anti-air cruisers or anti-air foils that protect a stack of ships which don't suffer collateral damage. It's worth noting against enemy needle jets or copters, and still can do reasonably well against other ships in long-range fire duels. The missile ships in the stack will be the ones selected to defend against long-range fire, preferably. But if they all get used, or they could do long-range fire to finish off damaged ships that the other missile ones sometimes lost to. So it's got a niche, mostly in the Navy, where armor adds less to cost on land units. So you may, which makes sense. Armor is heavy, but ships are very efficient ways of moving around a lot of mass in the real world. I play a good bit of From the Depths, and versus, well, I'll eventually do a Let's Play of it, and versus, say, air units, it's much easier, versus like air units or hover units, it's much easier to have a lot of weight on a ship, because water, it's dense, and it's heavy compared to air. And so a ship will float as long as the volume of water it displaces weighs that it can, without water making inside the ship, it can displace a volume of water equal to its own weight. So basically, if the volume of water would have to displace is greater than it can displace without water filling the ship, then the ship will sink. Otherwise, they'll float. Heavily armored ships aren't that difficult to make. The historical reason ships moved away from armor, it was a combination of, cost to build, and after World War II, there were no major naval rivals left to the United States, which had become the preeminent world power. The British always continued to favor armored ships a little more, like their aircraft carriers had deck armor when the U.S. ones didn't, and they were later to phase out armored ships even after World War II. But the American naval doctrine never emphasized armor much to begin with, emphasized speed, and then when there were no major naval rivals, there's no reason to invest a little more in armor, which is always useful if you're fighting another navy. The U.S. is mostly just want fast ships to go out and project power, and ones that have armor are going to use more fuel. Still has a use in modern naval combat. I know you get people say, "Oh, armor is obsolete now." No, it's not. It's not obsolete because, a missile will destroy a ship with armor just as easy as without. Missiles can be shot down. That's the thing that people forget. You get these idiots who talk about missiles and they forget the missiles can be shot down nowadays. The easiest way to do it is with another smaller missile. Missile interceptors, they're called. You fire a little missile, shoot down a bigger, heavier payload one. The missile interceptor costs a fraction of what the larger missile did. it's, among other things, it's got a shorter range. It only needs to fly a short distance to get to the larger missile before it hits its target. It can be faster, cheaper, and faster firing, a missile interceptor. And then there's also close-in weapon support systems like the Phalanx Sea-Wiz system, which basically they're Gatling guns that shoot down missiles before they hit a ship. We don't call them Gatling guns because it has this nasty sci-fi fantasy context, or reminiscent of the U.S. Civil War, where Gatling guns were used a little bit, but in the Mexican-American War even, the very earliest ones, Gatling guns are not what we often call them, but they're essentially kind of, and they don't actually work by the same mechanical principles, but they're extremely fast-firing weapons. That, basically very fast-firing machine guns that can shoot down missiles. No human can aim that quickly, but computers aim them, and so computers can track the missiles and shoot them down. In this game, you see some reflection of that concept with AAA tracking, which gives defense against air and missile attacks. By the way, at fission level, missiles only have, I think it's 6 or 8 attack. So with this, Silk Steel ships can survive missile attacks some of the time. And if you get to higher level armor, they definitely can. I would have to double check what the conventional payload attack damage is. I think it's 8 for a fission conventional warhead. 9? 9? Did they change it in the Alien Crossfire? I think they reduced this. 9. Okay, well, that means the odds are still in the favor of a missile if it attacks something with AAA tracking Silk Steel. Realistically, it should probably be more like plus 200% versus missiles, plus 100% versus aircraft or something. Because aircraft can keep a much greater distance where they're out of range of this kind of stuff and fire lots of really small missiles. But in terms of ship-to-ship missiles, they're not hard to shoot down. Aircraft are still the real top of the food chain in naval combat. Although it's possible to have surface-to-air missiles on ships, which, again, is a technology in this game. Usually not sufficient to stop a needle jet from attacking one of your ships, but then you can counterattack at the next turn and shoot the jet down. So you trade. Anyhow, enough talk. Let's see, got a condenser here that'll eventually be overgrown by a forest. But I built it to support this tile, which is now Rolling Rainy Farm. Plus 5. Right then. I think fill up the queue last turn. I don't know. Need to do a little bit of micro here with the rearranging of all this. This is going to go down to 5. It's not going to be a pop boom. The base will be in Alien Crossfire would be, but here it'll just be 5 nutrients in a row. Golden Age democracy planned. You have to have a chance Creches to boom in this. So 25 nutrients, and it currently has 9, so 16 to go. Right to them. It is doing some colony pods. Oh yeah, no, it'll be 11 to go though if Energy goes to waste regardless, looks like. This is going to be overflow towards size 5. Yeah, I was talking about building this base up for the Planetary Transit Network, but I'll have supply cars with the same tech, so actually I can bring in production from other bases, and should. In fact, I should build the supply cars before I even start the project. Get a little value crawling terrain until. Right. Let's see. 3 minerals. It'll be 2 after this is done. Should be, if I 6 more turns after this till the next colony pod. 6 more, because I'll have 3 overflow. 4, 5 more. Trying to do is prevent. Give me a sec to calculate this mad. Okay, yeah, sorry. I was figuring out how it was going to work with
request confirmation.
44 for 16. Wow. Need to spend energy. One of the best ways is on colony pods. Get bases done quicker. Yeah, there's a lot of different math here. Should be able to actually do this for a turn, but doesn't make much sense. It's gonna go down enough. Yeah, no, it does. This will give it 13 nutrients. Base will shrink, probably use the condenser. At that point, before overflow, I'll have to do 6 more minerals on the colony pod before I can rush it the next one. I'll have a surplus of 2 minerals, so it'll take like 4 turns. With just 2 nutrients a turn. Anyways, what I'm trying to do is get both these colony pods done before it reaches growth again, so that it costs less nutrients to replace the lost pops. It's more efficient that way. So it'll make this colony pod size 4, obviously, and next size 3. Then not long after, I go right back from size 2 back to size 3. Not long after at all, in fact. 2 and then maybe 3. I may have to swap in, turn on the other condenser. I may not be able to stop from growing entirely. Think of it. Because 5, yeah. Unless I want to waste nutrients, I should say. 11. No, nutrients is going to go to waste. It'll be down to 4 rows. I'm sorry, I thought I had this figured out and I realized I didn't. I'm more time than I thought. So yeah, it'll be 4 rows to grow. I like it to not have more than 3 Finish when the next colony pod finishes so that I'm not getting nutrients, so it'll just be overflowing the growth. Yeah, so Planetary Trust should work. A forced going all in on getting these colony pods done. And then instead of a rec commons, I could do maybe a children's creche. It's expensive, so maybe not. Depends how long till I get. Saying 61 years industrial automation, that will go way down once I do democracy. Yeah, because the base can currently only maintain a golden age up to size 4. So the rec commons will still have use for eventually getting size 5, 6 golden ages. Pay for itself, and then I'll pave the way for a children's creche somewhere down the line to grow this, to boom the space once I have the energy to spare. Question is, do I want to do the commons first or the creche? Probably the creche, actually. No, I don't have time. Probably it would be the rec commons, and then I'll, at that point, start in supply cores for the Planetary Transit Network. Yeah. And do a children's creche after, but the rec commons provides more immediate benefit than the children's creche. In that it provides the same growth bonus by maintaining golden age and provides energy to boot from the golden age. Creche provides +1 efficiency, which might add up to 1 energy, might not, and it costs way more. So yeah, there's always micro stuff to do, I guess. Always more. Let's see. This former is on fungus. Curiosity. 30 energy credits to make it a fungicidal farmer. That's right. I did just, it was all this turn. I think I did got the synthetic fossil fuels from Yang. It's been a long turn with a lot of diplomacy. Multiple episodes here. Fungus takes 6 turns to move. This would cut down to 3. The fungicidal tanks. Yeah, so even though this will cause the former to be idle for a turn, I could upgrade all existing formers to fungicidal formers. It would save a few former turns. Can't think of one I wouldn't want to.
Cannot execute order.
Oh, I'm trying to upgrade the fungicidal ones. Oops.
Insufficient energy.
810 credits. Yeah, I don't have enough money. Even if I I hadn't given Deidre, what does it think, it was like 150 energy credits. I wouldn't have the money, so I'm going to have to do on a case-by-case basis the upgrades. Yeah. So, first fungicide autoformer, built. And I lost 1 turn, but it'll save 2 when clearing the fungus, so it'll pay for itself very quickly. In terms of former turns, take longer to actually pay for itself with, more terraforming energy invested. So I got a former clearing fungus. One here that's oops. I'll do a farm there first. Since I no longer have to deal with nutrient caps, it's more efficient. No longer need 2 condensers first to get around because I have gene splicing. So clearing fungus, planting a farm. Just finished the condenser on this river, which will eventually become a forest condenser tile, which with tree farms will add a nutrient. And it does add some nutrient production in the meantime. Yep. Instead of this, get some nutrients in defense command. So they can actually grow. Defense command is a little crowded, so I want to direct nutrients to mound command instead. Because there's fewer tiles around here, this can work. So actually, oh, no, I need the minerals here, or the base won't be able to. Yeah. Later I can swap it off. Oh, no, wait, I can have. Yeah, I'm talking about swapping the mine for a condenser farm here, this base. Can't do it yet. We'll be able to do it soon. An econ point and a mineral. Oh no, that or this, a nutrient. This base. And what would this work? Yeah, that's fine. Alright, this condenser can only be worked by this base is the problem. It's going to be growing. I don't want more than 3 nutrient rows, and that's actually going to be reduced to 5 each. Yeah, I can 6. So 5 overflow, then 2, 2, 2, complete. Yeah, should work. No overflow on this, as long as I keep her in the forest. Problem is, no, only mountain command is the only other base can work that condenser. Shoot. So World Food Program to take over that tile. Get this colony pod done sooner that way. About those mine there. Just out of curiosity. 170 for. Wonder how much it would cost to buy one mineral. Speed this up. Can figure it out later. And it's even changes within a row. So if I wanted when it was at 7 to buy it up to 8, so we go to 10 next turn. Probably take a little trial and error, right? I'm guessing 5 or 6 energy, maybe. Maybe worth it for colony pod to turn sooner. Alright, give me a sec. Oh, I knew there was something I was missing. Since I don't want this base to grow too much, and I've got all these sweet, sweet, sweet mines around here. Boom. Now enable the space to go hard on the colony pod. Should be able to get done just before this grows. There are 6 rows left to fill. Right now. And if I get the colony pod in before, I wouldn't want to do more than 5 of them. But I should be able to get the colony pod done in 2, 3, 4 turns. So, yeah. The only thing is that democracy will knock down the cost. Whew. Give me a moment more. Yeah, no, I'm actually going to want, especially I don't want to just hand Morgan energy. I might be able to bully him out of it. Oh, well, this is going to do that either way. Yeah, I wasn't getting all the energy was just going to waste. So yeah, I'm probably, because I'm going to do democracy before the colony pod. Basically, there's 26 nutrients left to the point I won't want to exceed. Colony pod will be done in 4 turns, so this way I'll only waste 2 nutrients, and I may be able to step down nutrient production further. Swapping condenser to a mine or something. There may be ways, or a forest if I got one somewhere. If another one grew, which is always possible. On the last turn, reduce my nutrients 2, get 1 extra mineral. But the nutrients would have gone to waste. So, yeah, anyhow. It should have been obvious. World Food Program doesn't need the food. It's got so much already. Planetary Trust. It already is 9 at what will be 15. So 1, 2, 3. It'll grow before next colony pod. Oh well. I suppose there's value in that. And getting a little bit of extra production for a little while. It just comes at the expense of having to replace more nutrients later for growth. But, you know, booming doesn't matter that much, I suppose, in the long run, since we're not far from it. So, yeah, stuff to figure out there, but I got it figured out. For the most part. So seeing here trying to figure out what to do with this former. Looks like the obvious thing is just to go here and start on a well, something. Keep wanting to think that forest agency works out, but it's mountain command. There's some forest scattered around this base. Can't pop boom everywhere just because Chilling's Creches are so expensive. It's not like Alien Crossfire where as the peacekeepers I can just run doctors and bases for a little while and very cheaply pop boom any base. Something that really only the peacekeepers can do. It's like their superpower in the game, and most players aren't aware of this. You can invest heavily in psych, I suppose, with other factions, but for bases with low energy output, like, you know, 2, 3, 4. Well, I mean, it goes up a little. You have to, even with force, it'd be very hard for this base to be able to, as a non-peacekeeper faction, pop boom up to 7. And peacekeepers can easily do it all the way up to size 9. So it's very valuable. If you get the weather paradigm early, so you get lots of condensers in, even before you have the tech for them. And Human Genome Project, then you can very cheaply pop boom to massive size as the peacekeepers. Those two projects work synergistically. Condensers, food, Human Genome Project, the ability to keep that many pops happy, and Golden Age to pop boom. Anyhow, at a if I had a condenser there, base would get 1 more nutrient production, or mine and I'd lose 1 nutrient. Then it would be a 10 with 3, so 2 more size 5, it'd be 12. It'd only be growing 2 a turn, but it's not a ton of tiles for it to work. I guess that's gonna, rainy tile's gonna exist as well. Yeah, probably a mine. Condenser takes longer. 8 turns versus 6 of work for the former. No, No, wait, that's 1 mineral versus 2 nutrients now. What am I saying? Yeah. 12, 14. Yeah, the ability to have an extra specialist is worth more. Condenser, I think? No, because specialist still costs like to maintain. Unless space is extremely unhappy. Give me a moment more. I had to think for a bit. Yeah, I should do a condenser. That would make that a rainy tile. Interesting. The main thing with the condenser and all that is eventually I'm going to want a churn's creation at this base, almost regardless. Or some other base. If I'm really starting to focus on churn's creations, technician gives 3 energy. And that's like 1.5 minerals towards facilities. So if that's my shorter term goal, with whatever marginal, I mean, I have some fixed costs where I have to invest a certain amount in the military, but most whatever additional yield I can get will probably go into the facilities for a bit, where it's not going to colony pods. This base probably be like size 5 or 6, so I might not end up booming it, especially it's not surrounded by 10 tiles. So if it slow grows, I'll definitely want the food to grow faster. And if I do end up in a situation where I can get a churn's creche here, it'll feed more specialists, which are flexible because you can switch technicians to librarians where needed. I'm not too far from fusion power and having engineers, at which point technicians really start to pull ahead of mines and force. Specialists really start to pull ahead of mines and force when you get engineer specialists. Specialists are, in any civ game, usually better long term once you can sufficiently develop your cities. This is something I think a lot of Alpha Centauri players just kind of rebel against. They don't like the specialist economy. In Civ 4, on the other hand, they added great person points from specialists, and it suddenly became way more popular. It just felt better to the players, I guess, having like these unique, like Michelangelo characters than just having kind of anonymous technicians. Even though, in a sci-fi future, the anonymous technician is kind of a trope almost. So, alright, well, this is going here. I actually don't want to go this tile because worms can attack without rush penalties, so they can move on the river and actually attack that colony pod in that forest. If one were to spawn here, it's unlikely, but it's not impossible. The odds are very low. But yeah, I'm gonna found Amnesty Council, and I was thinking all this talk of designing stuff and thinking of base names through it all gave me an idea for another base name. This flat and rainy tile, it's worth noting, is an excellent site for a base. That's why I built the road there, right? Or was it? Oh no, I'm doing a forest. Base there. Give me a sec to figure out where the next base goes. Alright, I had to look under the fungus to see where the best place, but I think this is good. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise with all this time I spent recently in designer and heck even planning Design Agency, and another name, UN Planning Agency. Because all the time I spent planning stuff. Designs or plans of a sort. This mineral resource is covered in sea fungus, so I'm gonna have to. It's gonna take a bit of work to develop this into a borehole. What I end up needing to do is, well, probably raise terrain here, which will also connect this island up, making it easy to get a colony pod out there. Easier to do here than doing it off in the fungus here, and yeah, having a land connection is always good to an island. It allows me to eventually run mag tubes out to it. Much easier to defend that way than if I have to transport units by sea. These kind of islands are great for someone who's trying to invade the continent to set up footholds and invade, but I don't want someone to be able to do that. If anything, I want to make sure they're all in one land mass. But yeah, I'll raise this tile and that'll be a borehole eventually, and I'll have another base somewhere around here based on what gets lifted out under the borehole. Very likely this will be a flat tile here and not covered in fungus, and so I'll build a base here and then others out on the island. But I'll have to see what's on the island first before. But yeah, an expansion in this general direction. And let's see, I've got 2 colony pods in the works here. One there. So that'll be these 3 bases. One there. One there. Might do a borehole here because I don't know if I raise this tile up, whether that will now be over 1,000 meters. If it is, this flat tile will no longer be eligible for borehole. So borehole here, raised here. I'm gonna get right, and after and that will raising this will bring the nutrient up above sea level, and also these tiles. This one could also be another borehole. I'm going to be doing that relatively soon because it's so close to my headquarters. I mean, I know people object. It's not good to raise land, but getting land right near my HQ like this means high efficiency bases that I can divert lots of energy to. A common tactic is super science cities. That's not a good way to plan out your development. And this will be planning agency. That's where I'll plan to build base. It's not a good way to plan out your development because if you have one base that you get really large, often using colony pods to exceed the hab complex limits, you're going to have difficulty controlling the drones. Unless you do a punishment sphere, which is in the way of science, or you get the telepathic matrix, you're going to need to put a lot of points in the psych, which affects your entire empire, and that means lots of bases elsewhere that aren't so science focused will have all these psych points, and or I should say other bases will have talents they don't need. We actually don't want is one super science city, ideally. And this tactic was refined in Civ 4 gameplay, which is where I've done more of my recent Civ after I used to do a ton of Alpha Centauri, then Civ 4, and now back to Alpha Centauri. What you actually usually want is like 3 science focus cities very close to your capital. In Civ 4, the reason you want it close to your capital was although there you really had to be near commerce resources, but city maintenance went up with the size of a city, the population of a city. and says they're science focused, you were going to be building obviously quite a large population, so you'd be doing farms and cottages because you needed um, towns there. They were like the energy commerce focusing. They grew slowly. So also, if it's near your capital, you'd have time for the cottages to mature before you had science multipliers. But whereas it'd be hard to sell a city far from your capital and then have have built the cottages early enough. But also, very large populations um, would have higher maintenance costs, which is the way to limit city sprawl in that game. Whereas here, it's loss of energy to inefficiency with distance from the capital and bureaucracy drones the number of bases, which I think is a more refined system, but others may disagree. I think Alpha Centauri did it better than Civ 4. Civ 4, specialists are limited by buildings, facilities essentially. So you get a certain number of special slots per building, which is another reason you would probably with a science city early on, it'd be lots of commerce points, and then, well, actually, no, early on it would be what am I saying? Early on, you'd run specialists because the great person points costs were low. To get a great person, you'd probably be doing great people into techs, and then later on, your towns would have matured, and you'd be running raw commerce. Or you could do it the other way because, if I remember, the great people were worth more later ages. But regardless of which way you did it, at some point you either transition into or out of specialist economy, and the multiplier buildings would give you both scientist slots and multiply commerce stuff. So, and you'd want a few of them because also there were things like there was the Great Library Wonder, which required I think 3 libraries. So if you have 3 main science cities, that obviously would work well. You already have the multiplier buildings. Libraries are multiplier, kind of like network nodes here. Anyways, still true here because then you can run up the psych slider to like 20%, and those 3 bases with really high energy income near your capital, so there's low inefficiency, especially with the peacekeepers. You need it close to your capital. Those none of them will be. You don't have to run the psych slider as high because none of them will be quite as large. The super science city comes from like you doing the super collider and the theory of energy in one city. But if you're playing, that comes from people playing, against the crap AI in the base game, and then rolling for starts that they like, and having a world map that's favorable. If you just get a little unlucky, like the Spartans in the monster jungle here, we're going to overrun the university and become a real monster myself. Or you do, say, Thinker mod on Thinker difficulty, or your Kyrib's AI patch in the base game here, you're going to have a hard time with AI and you won't be able to get all the secret projects. Solely because the AI is so bad that, people can pick up both those projects, and because they use exploits like supply crawler upgrades. If you don't do that, you might not get the super collider and the theory of everything, and the theory of everything comes too late to really matter anyways in the game. So it's really just one city with the super collider, which only provides double research output for that base. That's great and all, but unless you're seriously over centralizing or massively exceeding the pop cap for a base, which is very expensive, 30 minerals per colony pod you're doing. The amount of energy you're losing to running psych in bases where you don't need it can substantially exceed the extra lab points you're getting in that base versus still having a lot in one base, but having slightly more in 2 or 3 secondary science cities right near your headquarters. Yeah, so I'll still try and make World Health Organization probably, or headquarters. I'd probably still try and do a lot of science. Well, the HQ would be the best place if I could get the super collider there some day, but otherwise World Health because it's only 2 tiles from. But Planning Agency will probably eventually be a secondary science city. And these 3 bases, and maybe civil rights eventually, it's the next closest base, will be producing probably the majority of my lab points. I will probably exceed the HAP complex limit some, which if I get the aesthetic virtues will already be 18, but not guaranteed I'll get that. But yeah, I'll probably grow those three bases here with pop booming up to like size, and colony pods to like up to like size 20, 24, and run lots of lab specialists and have lots of like science multipliers like the network node, research hospital, and might be a few doctors in there so that to provide, or well, at that point I'll be impasse to provide psych points, so that I don't have to run the psych sliders high. Anyways, like those 3 bases and all supply crawl nutrients and the support of specialists. Needs to be specialists, to concentrate all the lab points in the places where the multiplier buildings will be, rather than. I mean, I have a hard time running my lab slider empire-wide high as the UN. You can do that with other factions. If I would say the Gaians and running green, I could go up to like labs 100% no problem. I can have very decentralized science. As peacekeepers, you gotta plan stuff more around your lower efficiency rating. The real power, though, is you can have very high populations, including lots of specialists that are in bases that still have some workers. The specialists still cost psych to maintain up until basically you run out of pops don't start as drones. At that point, they start coming out of the drone population. Because I guess you run out of people who have been, from the privileged classes to give higher education to, and you have to start doing scholarships for the lower classes. That's one way to think of it. Some people call it an X-way, but I disagree. Drones are a societal choice to undereducate and undercare for a segment of your population. And technicians, that's like saying someone at technical college is not even, it wouldn't be that expensive. That's why the free drones get -1 drone, though, is because they take better care of their lower classes, lifting more of them up. Workers of the world unite. That's basically the motto of the free drones, which I'm sure sounds familiar to some of you. That particular saying, as it should, because it's quite famous. Quite famous indeed. Put the scout patrol here. And potentially find a worm that he might lose against, and then, yeah, they can go north later if the scout patrol ends up successfully entering a fungus instead of finding my worm. That's what I'm doing these scout patrols, is hunting for worms, while still providing some protection to the formers. So a new former there, I'll probably use the transport to get it where it needs to go. Which is about to have a road there. It can one turn its way right to this just going along the road, we'll get the former there. Give me a sec. Oh yeah, sorry. With all this text and stuff, it's a little dense, and there's irritatingly, it's easy to see stuff where the slopes, the side of the slope that's facing the camera, but it's always hard to see the downside. And I don't think there's any way. This is not a true 3D game, so it's not like I can rotate around to look at the hills on the other side, which would have made this so much nicer. This is before, I mean, this is isometric Faux 3D, the same kind of techniques early SimCity games used. You know, what I actually need to do is, boom. It's not a super rush in that forest. It will eventually grow in into the condensers is the hope. And someday I'll probably clear it and put a city there, a base there. To work some of these tiles currently covered with fungus further out from world food. But and just split some of these condensers because that's a lot of food for one base. Yeah, what I need to get started on is this borehole. Here.
Terraform complete.
So, yeah, this still has a third movement, which is the same as a full movement for starting on a borehole. As an energy source there. Anyways, I like to guard stacks of multiple civilian units, especially if they're working on longer projects, like a borehole, or if it gets interrupted. Like, one turn for complete, that's a lot of lost form turns. Guarding units, I think, is playing because ram mine attacks are pretty rare, usually not worth it, but it's most cost effective on large stacks of formers doing high cost projects. Large stacks because of collateral damage, high cost projects because, you know, lost former turns if they have to leave or get killed. So if I already have the scout patrols, I'll use them more efficiently, and I'll still have them try and move into the fungus to hunt worms. Because they don't pay for themselves just by guarding units. It's actually be better just to leave the units unguarded unless they have like 6 formers on a tile or something crazy. On the highest 2 difficulties, mindworm attacks are more common though, and the threshold for guarding formers is somewhat lower, but still probably not really cost effective until you have like 3 formers on a tile or something. Ram mindworm attacks just aren't that common. You're better sometimes losing units and replacing them and getting more terraforming done in total. And sometimes the formers will even, on rare occasions, win, and then you get more experienced formers, more likely to win in the future. So, they're not guaranteed to die against mindworms, they just usually do. Yeah, but I talked about a quick video, and this ended up being, well, not quick. I guess I could guard this rover. I mean, this former. Yeah. Let's see. Roads built here. Probably want to work this tower. There's no chance of my attacks because this one might have a solar panel. But another condenser in this line of condensers. It's also moving towards the, say, the design agency. Have to build a road either through this forest or the rocky tile, or take a slightly longer approach, build a road here. So that's one move for colony pod. 1, 2, 3, and then because even the most direct path would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, I'd have to go through this forest and have a road here. It'd be a lot of form returns. Probably not gonna happen before the colony pod's done. So best I can do is somewhat reduce the number of turns, not minimize it. This means making use of the existing road network. Trying to remember how many turns it takes to build a road, a rocky tile like that. Yeah, here I was talking about condenser, but actually I need to do is go do a road, I guess. Well, this is still the best tile to do it. The forest is... Could have gone there, but it would have had a chance of failing. Go around this way is the point. Road here will also extend towards, well, this nutrient resource, but it should be where I have another base a little while later. Yeah, but anyhow, all that talk about this being a shorter session, and it ended up not being, because I get, well, when I'm really tired especially, everything takes longer than I expect it will. I get tired. On COVID. Can also get carried away. I was going to say, but this is actually more result of exhaustion than anything.